Hello, hello, hello. Therapy and affordability. That's the topic today, which I feel has multiple discussion points on it, multiple things that someone could go into. And it's a common question about cost. So I'm in the Kansas City area, which matters when you think of affordability and cost of services. Certain places like a lot of Southern California area is going to cost more. You look at just the general cost of living and overall location of the US, and things tend to trend with that area. So, for that frame of reference, I feel like when you look at this area, a very common price range for established therapists, um, give or take, in the 120 to 150 range. I have seen that trend start to bump up to higher numbers. I don't meet very many therapists who charge a lot more than 150. I do know plenty. I'm one of them, and it's still kind of in that bracket of 120 to 150 from all places I see. A lot of costs below that will generally be viewed as a little bit cheaper, not necessarily affordable in the traditional sense of how that's used, and then a lot over that 150 mark will be considered more expensive, and usually people are assuming that they're getting some extra layer of expertise. And I would say that anything beneath the $80 line is in the affordable line, and then there are brackets of that, like your free services, your $20 to $50 services, and all of that. And there's so much that goes into affordability, and it is important to keep in mind that the word affordable does not mean everyone can do it. When you think about buying an affordable house or an affordable car, you don't think, oh, $10, $20. You think relative to what you're getting. This is what an affordable house would be. This is what an affordable car. If I say think about an affordable house, most people are still thinking potentially in the triple digits nowadays, but perhaps in the high single digits, assuming the house is good. And with cars in the low couple thousands is what people would assume is affordable. And even that, you're assuming still a level of quality that you might not get. So this industry is the same. Affordability means relative to what the cost is. And I think one of the biggest issues with therapy is people understanding exactly what it is, the cost to be a therapist and to get to the point where you can offer that. But also, there is such a wide range of both experience and expertise, which are not necessarily the same thing. I mean, someone can be doing the job for 30 years and never have a focus of what they're doing and still be bad at the job. So just spending time in a room with someone is not necessarily going to build your overall skills, which is why I don't typically love when people just say their years in the field, or when people are asking me or other therapists, well, how long have you been doing this? I don't think that's a great question. I think it's one of many useful ones, but to base a decision on expertise from that is not usually the best. And I think about my experience with music, something I've been doing since I was little. And I think a really good phrasing that people hear is practice makes perfect, which not necessarily true. I prefer another colloquialism, I guess, of perfect practice makes perfect. So just doing something over and over doesn't get you there. It gets you pretty far. That's essentially mastering the art of showing up. If you go to the gym all the time, you'll likely be more in shape than someone who doesn't go at all. If you pick up and play your instrument every day, you'll probably be a better musician than someone who never touches it, and so on and so forth. Same with this job. If you show up and you sit with clients every day, you'll probably be a better therapist than people who don't. However, people who show up with a goal of what they're practicing, if I show up to the gym and I have my training plan ready, I'm going to do even better. Not only that, if I have my training plan ready, I'm there, training plan is ready, and I know more of the ins and outs of how I should do movements. So this is how my body should move. This is what it means to go to failure. This is what it means to push myself. I'm going to do even better. Same with music. If I show up, I'm going to pick up a guitar or whatever. I'm going to practice scales. And not only that, I'm going to know exactly how I plan to practice those skills and know that I'm doing a good job. That includes everything from not just the specific sound and hitting the notes, but how clean is it? How smooth is it? If I'm practicing time and tempo with it, am I on it with the scale and how I'm playing? Am I playing them backwards? It's like all these other factors of how well you practice in those moments. And same with a private practice. So there's so many factors that go into what an experienced therapist is. And what's interesting is it's not always about the experience. So some people want just a certain type of person. So I've had people want to work with me just because I'm a guy. And that has nothing to do with clinical experience and everything to do with what I would say is like intersectional traits, so to speak. Just people like, hey, I want this type of person. Is that always useful in therapy? No. I would argue it's often not useful, but it can be a really helpful onboarding, especially with people who have trauma or backgrounds where they want a certain shared experience. And that, like I said, it isn't often very helpful, but for the right person in the right circumstance, it can be very, very helpful to have that match where you need it, specifically if it's the piece that'll help you to open up and feel connected. And this is also where pricing comes in. And this is what I bring up in my consultation calls all the time about pricing. If people are struggling with pricing and they need to figure out a different price, even if I'm referring them out and I'm asking, what's your price range? I typically will say something along the lines of, what's the upper and lower end that you can pay that it wouldn't cause stress? So someone might say, I could technically get away with 150, but if I have a sick day from work or if anything happens, now I can't pay my bills. So that is potentially stress inducing, where that person's going to be worried because of this expense. So trying to figure out where that's not going to cause stress. And therapy is meant to release stress, get people into greater freedom and a thriving state. So we don't want to do pricing in a way that causes stress. That doesn't mean therapists need to lower their prices. It just means you want to make sure you match in every category: clinical match, price match, scheduling match. Anything that's going to be relevant to the process needs to match. Client and therapist, patient and therapist, all needs to line up. So the question of affordability is super, super subjective. And you get down to the question of values with it. Of, like I said before, a $10,000 book, people are gonna laugh at and wonder why that's so expensive, no one's buying that. But a $10,000 house, people are going to be very concerned that it's a bad house. But it's the same dollar amount, but it's not the same item and perceived value. $10,000 book someone would assume it's an insanely valuable book. But a $10,000 house, someone would assume the exact opposite, that it's a bad house and is not livable and ready to go. So we perceive value not based on price tag, but based on all the factors that go into what makes that thing seemingly valuable or not. So again, therapy is something where a lot of people don't have a lot of education about what the process is and what it should cost. They just have an idea of what they feel like it should cost, or they might say, well, you're just talking to someone and there's other pieces that there's just a lot of questions for people. And that's why I think a lot of phone consultations include education of this is what the process is. This is how it looks. This is what to expect. This is another place you could go and expect something different that costs more or less. This is what I offer. And then some people will ask you why. I don't run into that too often, but I think it's good to continuously inform people what that looks like. And, I think this video alone, over time, I can probably chop up and make into longer form videos on a lot of these topics, because they really tie into what the process of therapy looks like and the question of affordability. And I will say, just because something has a value that's really high, same with a house. If someone's like, well, the house is worth this much, doesn't mean we can all afford it. And that's kind of a bad example with the house market right now, because me, as well as many people, I believe, don't actually think the houses are worth the price that people are paying. So people aren't buying. And that's, an issue, and it can be an issue in any field where people say, you know what, this isn't worth it. So I've had people say the work that I offer is way too expensive. And I've had people not bat an eye at the price. They're like, yeah, of course, that's what I assume, it's good. And you get the occasional person that doesn't even think it's that expensive. So again, value, how you perceive it, makes a world of difference. And I'm fully aware that a lot of people really value therapy and still can't pay the price. And this happens a lot with people with really, really rough backgrounds who actually need the specialized care and can't afford it. And it's because of the background that has made it harder to afford. Now, I don't think someone's background affects things as much as a lot of people say it does. I think what you choose to make of your life is going to be the biggest factor of what happens to your life, not your background. And there just are far too many examples of people breaking through to make me think that your history is going to determine your future. It affects it, definitely affects it, but it definitely does not assume it and guarantee it. So, however, you do see a lot of people who really rough backgrounds, trauma, awful things happening, got started on the wrong foot, learned how to be in relationships that are bad, are still to this day, 20, 30, 40 years old, not understanding how to interact in a healthy relationship. And maybe they serially just get fired from jobs and they finally are like, I think I'm kind of the issue here. I need to resolve some of the stuff that was given to me inappropriately, but now I've taken and messed up more things. And now I have to handle this and take care of the past because no one else can do that for me anymore. And they need a lot of intensive work, but they can't afford it because of the reason before. So I think finding more affordable routes is actually really important. This is why a lot of therapists give away free work, whether that's in the form of completely free sessions or sliding scale sessions, which is free work. I know a lot of people will consider that discount, but my perspective is that it's actually free work because their full price is this. You're not getting a discount. You're getting a portion of that work for free now. And that stuff's important. And this is why we have agencies. And this is why people will do, well, this is why a lot of group practices and growing practices will bring on student interns because they can charge a very low rate, sometimes free, for people. Now they don't get expertise, which is the balance, right? Because the more expertise someone has, the more they typically charge. And still, most people who are higher expertise still have a couple slots that are much more affordable to help with that. And at the end of the day, I do think that the more people who get helped overall, the better society is. There's a whole other topic on how we're helping and if therapy is doing what it needs to do. Because I definitely don't think it is to the full extent. I think there's a lot of revamping that the industry needs to be successful, and not even to sustain, but to be successful in what its goal is to make people mentally healthy. I think there needs to be quite a bit of changes to push that forward, and not all that's the industry's problem. There's a lot of very readily available research that people can look up in their own home and take care of themselves, but people just won't do it. It's pretty common. I'll say very small and easy things to do, and people just won't do them, even though it's all available evidence says do more of this and you'll have better mental health. So there's a lot of issues there, and it gets hard, I think, as I'm talking, realizing that this definitely does need to be broken down to multiple topics, which I think will be a lot of fun to do, and I might just use this video to scatter topics across the next couple of Mondays. We'll see. But overall, the question of therapy and affordability is a very important one, and I think I'll probably end up leaving this video there as I think more and realize this should be broken down. Either that or I'm going to be here talking for like 2 hours, and I can see the timer on my camera and I do not have that much time on the memory, so I'll probably go ahead and leave it there. But just consider when you're thinking about therapy, and this is, I guess, for therapists and people interested in therapy in any way, whether you're attending or just curious, think about what you get from the experience. And are you getting that dollar amount of value back into your existence? Because the idea is this helps long term. This is why we go to doctors and healthcare professionals and trainers, is the money that we're putting in. Ideally, we're getting at least that much back, if not more, in reclaiming our lives. So think about that when it comes to value. And another broader topic is just what it costs to become a therapist, because for a lot of people that is a very easy 5 figures, but a lot of people end up, there's no reason it should cost over $100,000 to become a therapist. That's usually just poor financial planning, but a good 50,000 plus for all, 6 to 7 or more years of training plus all the licensure and cost. It Let's assume that a therapist would pay probably at minimum $50,000 ish to get that. And that's probably more on the conservative end, but probably upwards of that for sure. And that really depends on how much they threw money away in college for their undergrad. But yeah, so it's a lot. So I think this is a great topic to talk more about. I'll probably just go ahead and leave it there, and we'll see what the follow-ups look like. So just consider value for therapy. Is it affordable? It's actually not a yes or no question. That is a lot of factor question, but just consider what that value is to you, how that clinician's valuing it, what they actually have to offer. Is it worth it at the end of the day for what your trade-off is? And you can start to get an idea of what's actually making sense in terms of cost. So yeah, that'll be it for today. If you are interested in therapy services, my contact info is below for anyone living in Kansas and Missouri, anyone living outside that area or in Kansas and Missouri, but not interested in working with me, still reach out. I can typically get people connected to the right fit, and I really enjoy doing that. Feel free to check out the websites and the social media, and I'll look forward to seeing everyone Monday. Thanks. Bye.